a link to our WhatsApp group, and as more people join, I will then share that again. Okay. Let's get going. And sorry that we haven't had sessions earlier. So today we are doing numbers and variables, but I also included a bit more in the exercises that we just don't look at numbers and rounding off of variables. We are also looking a bit more on some of the other things, so that it can also be part of the prep for your assignments. Next week, and most likely we will move the sessions around, but then next week we'll do chapter 2, but I will also bring in a bit more of previous year's assignments, that we also just make sure that we can cover a bit more, so that we get aligned with when you need to submit your assignments and things like that. Okay, so today's topic, we're looking at chapter 1, numbers and variables. And in that, there's a few things that we need to be able to do. So we will need to be able to identify different kinds of numbers. So they might ask you guys in the assignments and the exams around whole numbers, rational, irrational. So we look at that. You will never need to draw a number line. So we're going to look at that, but more for explanation of the numbers. They will not be able to ask you in the assignments or the exam around drawing a number line. So we're going to look at it, but more for nearly the background of that. Then rounding off of numbers, again, I think that is important. We'll go through a few examples. Then I think one of the things that is probably the most difficult is when you get word sums where they give you certain things in an expression and you need to write down what the formula is. So again, we will look at a few examples, and just to again make sure I will share the presentation and the recording later on the WhatsApp group. I will again share the link and my number a bit later also as people join. So don't worry about that. I will share with you guys later during the semester a whole formula page with some notes on it, so that when you guys write your exams, you have a formula page. BNU, when you write it, it's open book. Like your assignments, it's open book. So you are allowed to have notes with you. You're allowed to have formula pages, all those kinds of things with you. So we will make sure that you do. We are preparing you for the exams. So yes, in the meantime, we'll prep you for the assignments as well. But the most important thing is in the end that we make sure that you get pass the module. Okay, so when we look at numbers, there's a few things how we classify it. So you guys can also, when you Google numbers or want to look for short YouTube clips, you can Google a few things. So you can say, you can look at it from a few points. So you can, firstly, everything is nearly sorted under real numbers. Then you can, at a higher level, so we've got real numbers, and then we will split that into two. You've got your rational numbers, and your irrational numbers. So rational numbers, I nearly want to say it makes sense. So you can look at it and you can see, okay, 9.4, 3/4, -50. Irrational numbers is things that are very difficult to get an exact answer. So if you look at the square root of 10, it's a number that nearly continues. And there's not really a pattern in it at all. So irrational numbers are, I always call them nearly the weird numbers, because it's a difficult number. It's not a whole number. It is not nearly a natural number. It's not an integer. It's not something that you see there's a pattern in the decimals. So irrational numbers is basically a number with decimals that don't have any pattern or any order in it. Um, that is when it is irrational. So they might ask you a number, so they can tell you, okay, 7/8, is it classified as a rational number? So 7/8, yes, it is a rational number. Is it an integer? No, it's not, because integers needs to be whole numbers. It can be positive or negative, but it needs to be whole numbers. Is 7/8 a whole number? No, because whole numbers is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it a natural number? No, but it is a fraction. Okay, so they can then have a number like 7, or the square root of 49, which is 7, and ask you the same kind of questions around it. So again, we're not gonna ask you a question like name a number, because again, BNU is multiple choice, so they will rather ask you pick one of these that are correct, or pick one of these that are incorrect. The reason why I just wanted to include the number line is just so that you can see that if you look at on the number line, that is all positive numbers, but if you go from 0 and up, it is integers. If you go from 0 and up, it is also whole numbers. If you go from 1 and up, you will get the natural numbers. But also, if you go to the negative side, you also got integers. So integers basically is any number, negative or positive. Whole numbers is any numbers that is 0 or above, and whole your natural numbers is any number of 1 and above. Okay, but again, you are allowed to, when you do your assignments, have the slides with you. You are allowed to have your study guide with you. So sometimes easier to look at the slides, because then you don't need to page through your study guide. So on that, the one thing that it's not on here, but we love to ask it, is prime numbers. So it's one of those that I know they like to ask. They don't always talk a lot about prime numbers in the study guide, but a prime number is a number that can only be divided by itself and by 1. Okay, so a prime number can only be divided by the number itself and by 1. Now increase the size again. So what we love to ask is to give you a set of numbers and ask you which one is prime, which one is prime, which of the following is not a prime number. So that is different sets of questions around prime numbers that they can ask. So let's look at it. Number that can be divided by itself and by 1. Okay, so if we look at 14, okay, there's a few numbers that can go into 14. So 2 can go into 14. Okay, 3 can't go in there, 4 not, 5 not, 6 not, 7 can go in there, 14, and then obviously 1. Okay, so yes, itself and 1, but 2 and 7 also can go into 14, and then it's not a prime number. And that is nearly how we will look. It's easier to identify the not, or sorry, the not prime numbers than learning or studying all the prime numbers that there could be. So if we look at the next one, 15, so we know that 1 goes in there. Okay, 2 can't, but 3 can, 5 can, and 15 can. Okay, so because 3 and 5 can also go in there, it's not a prime number. Then we look at 18. So I'm going to skip the 1, but then we say, okay, well, 3 can go in there, 6 can go in there, oh, 2 can also go in there, 9 can also go in there. So definitely not a prime number. Then we look at 19, and then I'm like, okay, it's 1, 2 can't, 3 can't, 4 can't, 5, 6, 7, 8. So in the end, it's actually only 1 and 19 that can go into 19, when we know that 19 is the prime number. And I think that is just a way to show you guys as well that please don't go and study a list of prime numbers, because they can nearly give you numbers that are in the hundreds. So again, please don't go and study a list of prime numbers. Rather try it and work it out. And you don't, if you or at 14 and you see 2 is in it, then you can go to the next number already. You don't need to write down all the factors or numbers that will go into 14. You can just say, oh, well, 2 goes in there, so it's more than just 1 and 14. So let's look at another grouping of, so 18, we can say, well, 2 can go in there, and 2 times 9 gives me 18, so then I know it's not a prime number. I look at 21, 3 can go in there, 3 times 7 gives me 21. Okay, so it's not a prime number. 23, okay, I know obviously 1, 2 can't, 3 can't, 4 can't, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so it's only 1 and 23, so that will be our prime number. If we look at 24, well, 2 goes in there, 2 times 12 is 24. So that already tells me there's going to be more than just 1 and 24. So that again is not a prime number. But also, and I think at the moment your assignments are not timed. I'm not 100% sure, but in the exam, your exam will be timed. So again, if you are now with option 3 and you know that is a prime number, pick it, go to the next question. Don't go through all of them to see if you are right. If you are already right at option 3, pick it and go to the next one. What they can also do is ask nearly the inverse. So which one of the numbers are not prime? So then you look at the first one and we say, okay, well, 2 can go into 28, it goes into 14. So 2 times 14 gives us 28. So that means that is not a prime number. So the other 3 will be prime numbers. Okay, so one can already have now seen also 19 is a prime number. If you want to put a few prime numbers together, 23, 29, 31, and 37. So just out of these 3 questions, there is already 5 prime numbers that we have identified. But I think 11 is also a prime number. 7 might be a prime number as well. So there's already smaller numbers as well. But again, please don't go and study a list of prime numbers. Rather try to see what is the smaller factors within each prime number and to identify it that way. Then you guys will also need to round off. And I think already in assignment 1, if I think that was already needed to be submitted, but you can also let me know when assignment 1 and 2 and 3 is needed to do. So the important thing with rounding off is, and I like these steps, so but also you can again Google and watch some video clips that might be shorter, but how I try to remember it is, so if I have a number, say 4,7346, and I now need to round off. The first thing that they need to tell you in the question is how many decimals you need to round off. So again, they can't just tell you round off. They will need to tell you round off to 3 decimals. Okay, so if this number we needed to round off to 3 decimals, we will underline nearly the digit that we need to round off to, and then we will look at the number to the right of it. And then if that number, and you can now see at step 3 and 4, if that number is 5 or more, we will round up the underlined number, so then it will become 4,735. If that was 4,7344 and we needed to round it off to 3 decimals, we would have looked at the number to the right of it. If it is smaller than 5, so 4 and less, then we will keep the number as is. Okay, so one thing that you guys can now see is we will never lower that number. So it will never go to 4,733. So it will always stay the same or be rounded up with one number. But it will never ever happen that you will say 4,733 suddenly. So it will always be the 4,734, or it will move up 1 to 4,735. So that is also, I think, important with rounding off. Again, we will go through a few rounding off exercises now as well, so that you guys can see if we move from one to another, to a third or fourth decimal, how we will do that. And I'm just quickly looking on WhatsApp. Okay, so there is still people struggling to get access. So yeah, just it is being recorded as well, so that I will share the session later on. If anyone is not on the WhatsApp group, there is a link in the chat that you can click on and join the group. If you are listening to this recording later on, you can also send me a WhatsApp on 0837908387 and join the WhatsApp group. I'll add you to the WhatsApp group during tonight or tomorrow, and again, as I add more people, I will reshare all of the recordings and presentations. Okay, so let's look at a few options. You can see, and this will also happen a lot in your assignments, they don't need to give you every time new numbers. They might just ask you to round it off to different decimals. Also, how your assignments are, you might have already seen it, is that there are different questions. So it might be that some of the students get question 1, some of the students are getting question 2, and some of the students are getting question 3 as the question for decimal. And that will also happen in the exam, is that there are, for a question, there might be three options that they might ask you in the question sets. Okay, so let's look at question 1. Round this off to 3 decimals. Okay, so what we've seen from the process is we need to round off to 3 decimals. So we will look at that third decimal. We will look at the number to the right of it. If it is above 5, we will round off the 4. We will add 1, so that will become 5. So let's look at the options. So we need to get 10,995. 10,994. It's not that. So that would have happened if that number was 4 or below. It's not. 11,900. That is just totally wrong. 10,996. Interesting. That is one of the options. So very close. But the number we're looking for is 10,995. Okay, so they've included the third option to confuse you, because very easily one can have looked at that and said, okay, but the 8, I rounded the 5 up to 6, and you miss maybe some of the decimals. The 10,994 is where if you have read the rules wrong and thought, okay, it must be bigger than 5 to round it up, and then the second option is just a totally wrong one. And you guys will now see most of these questions, we will get an option that is totally not what we're looking for, and other ones that are very close to one another. So let's look at question 2. Here they said, okay, around 10,99, so the same number off to 2 digits. Okay, so let's look at 10,99, and it's 10,994. So because 4 is smaller than 5, we keep it as is and we don't increase the roundup. So it will stay then 10,99. And so there you can see it stays 10,99. If it was 10,995, we would have rounded it up, and then our answer would have been 11. And so if that was just a 5, our answer would have been something different. Again, 10,9, not close to one of the answers, and 10,10 is just totally wrong. So like one that they included here, 11.9, the 10.10 is just totally wrong. And yeah, the fourth option would have been, if it was 10,995, it would have rounded up to 11. And then option or question 3, round off to 1 decimal. Okay, so again, let's look at options 10,9. So if that second decimal was 4 below, it would have been 10,9, but it's not. 20, again, now suddenly you see that's just totally wrong. That's one of those that is just, again, totally out of the ballpark. Then we look at option 3, 11. So we look at the 9, we look to the right of it. Okay, it's above 5 or 5 and above. So it would round off. That means that the 9 would round off. So our answer will be 11. 11.0, and when we 11.9, that might have happened if you increase that one, like we did, and forgot that it's actually a 0 and you kept the 9, that would have maybe given you the 11.9, but that is also wrong. So again, they can ask you with the same number different options to round off, but please use these steps. Um, it it really works very nicely, and again, you are allowed to have the notes with you when you do your assignments, when you write the exam. So it is actually very nice just to have the notes. Um, Again, sometimes difficult when you guys need to write it with your, if you're writing the assignments and the exam on a phone, you're allowed to write it on a phone, so there's no issue with that. But it might be very difficult to access the notes or the study guide unless it is printed. So if you are writing your exam on a laptop, then you can really access this by having it open. So just again, there is still time until when you write exams. So if some of the things you want to print to be able to have access to it, you still have time. But again, if you have a laptop, if you have a computer, it is easier to get access to your study guide and things like that. Okay, then we go into what they call variables and expressions, formulas. So again, there are a few things that we need to know. They sometimes do ask theory in your assignments and exam, but it's like one or two questions. So there's not a lot of those things that will be asked in exams. But if you get something like that, a variable is basically a placeholder. So variable is a placeholder for a number. And it might be that when we, and again, we will get examples now where they might say, like this, 2x plus 3p minus 10y, and they give you numbers to replace into the expression, or they might then also, during the process, go a step further where they look at formulas and things like that, where you need to nearly replace numbers and work out a y or something like that. In the second chapter that we will also go through next time, we will also look at these expressions and equations later on that we need to solve. So, and straight lines. So all of those things nearly start off with the beginning of expressions and then just go into functions and straight lines and things like that. Okay, so I thought, let me also put in a few questions that is specifically focused on like word sums, because again, that is something that will be in your assignments and exams. So they love to ask word sums. We will cover a few later on in the next session, I'll bring in some of the word sums that goes with area and those kind of things with ratios, so that we just cover a lot. So included in tonight's session as well is some question that was in last year's assignments, so that you got, or last semester even, so that you can just get a feel of questions that is in the assignments as well. So let's look at this and let's see how we can solve it. So suppose an ice cream costs twice as much as a chocolate. If an ice cream costs X rand, how much in terms of X just the chocolate cost? Okay, so if an ice cream costs X, suppose an ice cream costs twice as much as a chocolate. So if the ice cream is X, a chocolate will cost basically X over 2. Okay, or it can be the other way around that we can look at it, and we can say that twice as much. So if the one is X, twice as much means that we need to make sure that, and I think a lot of guys are having some problems connecting. So if you drop off, it's fine. Reconnect, it's fine. If you dropping off, the recording will also be available later. So yeah, so there is a lot of network issues at the moment. I think there is also problems on Teams with some network issues, not just in the UNISA environment, with a lot of environments. So fully understand if you guys drop off. The recording will go on. I will explain the questions so that we can understand it. So in this one, how I got to the X over. Okay, cool. So so welcome. The recording will continue and I will post it. So if you drop off again, don't worry. Recordings will be available. Okay, so in this one, what we need to work out is they tell us that suppose an ice cream costs twice as much as a chocolate, but ice cream is X. So the way that you can also look at it is give it a number. So let's say a chocolate costs 5 rand and ice cream costs twice as much as a chocolate. So if the chocolate is 5 rand, twice as much is 10 rand. So if my ice cream is X, so if my ice cream is 10 rand, how do I get from 10 rand to 5 rand? I divide by 2. Okay, so then if my ice cream was X, to get to the chocolate price, X divided by 2 will give me that answer. Okay, so again, they love to ask word sums, and we will, in prep for your exam, will cover a lot of word sums. So as I see more of them, I will add, and we will get to more word sums and how to work it out. Okay, so let's look at the second one here. So suppose John buys a chocolate and the ice cream. How much in terms of X does he pay for them? Okay, so ice cream was X, chocolate was X over 2, so that is how much he will pay for both of them. So he will pay X plus X over 2. So again, let's just make sure if we put in rand values, if it was 10 rand, so it will be 10 plus 10 over 2, so it's 10 plus 5. That would have given us 15. So then we also know that our formula is correct that we got to. So again, nothing prohibits you guys from putting in numbers just to make sense of the question. Again, you will see that they try to catch you out in the assignments. So put in numbers if the formula does become tricky or they want to catch you out. Okay, so let's look at a few extra questions around this. So again, they talk about the ice cream and the chocolate. So how much change will John receive if he pays with a 50 rand note for a chocolate and ice cream? Okay, so we have seen that the formula was X plus X over 2. So then we can say, well, if it was X plus X over 2, the formula would look something like this. So we now see, okay, they've got everything into 1. So what we will need to change a bit in this is to multiply this minus in at both of those within the brackets. So we will end up with minus X and minus X over 2. And again, let's just use the 10 and the 5 rand. So if John had 50 rands, he bought ice cream, it will be minus 10 rand. So he would have 40 rand left. If he bought a chocolate of 5 rand, you will have 35 rand left. Okay, so we can see it again if we replace the x's with the 10 rand. So let's look at which one. 50 minus x, but that must be minus. It's not that one. Here it's going to be negative, so it's not that one. The 50 minus minus, so that is option 3 that we pick. And that would have been a bit bigger, so also not option 4. Okay, so again, write it if you are sometimes struggling to get the formula. It is also good to just replace it with numbers to see if it does make sense. Okay, another one that I got from a previous exam paper is this one where they say a cast iron rod is 30 meters long. Okay, so they say it's 50 meters long. Then they say it has to be cut into 2 pieces such that one piece is 8 meters longer than the other. Then they say suppose the longer piece is p meters how long in terms of p should the shorter piece be? Okay, so they basically say this 50 meters, you cut it into pieces. The longer piece is p, the shorter piece is p minus 8. And let's just see first if that makes sense. So if we write it out as a formula, it will be then p plus p minus 8, that will be 30. So 2p will be equal to, that goes over to that side, will be equal to 58. So p will be equal to 19. So let's just check if that makes sense. So if p is 19, 19 minus 8 is 11. 19 plus 11 is 30. So that makes sense. And then the one piece is 8 meters longer than the other piece. Okay, so great. So that means that if a one is p, the other piece is p minus 8, which gives us option 4. But again, what I did was also tested it with the numbers so that it makes sense. So there was sometimes that one wanted to say 8 minus p, but then if we put that in the formula, we will see it doesn't work. So again, sometimes easier to put the numbers together with a formula, so that we can see how that works. Okay, again, what I'm just, for the guys that don't have access to the WhatsApp group, there is a link to the WhatsApp group in the chat. And also, if you are watching the recording and not part of a WhatsApp group, just send me a WhatsApp on 0837908387, and I will add you to the group. Okay, so more of these types of questions, because I know that they love to ask it. So let's look at these two questions as well. So John travels X kilometers in 3 hours at a certain average speed. An expression in terms of X for the distance that John travels in 5 hours. Okay, so John traveled X kilometers in 3 hours. So the first thing that is important is, what is the definition of average speed? And I used to have it on the slide, so let me just quickly Google it, so that we have that. I'm gonna just copy a picture in. Not this big. Okay, so that we can use that. So average speed, total distance over time. Okay, so the average speed would have been distance is x over time. So that would have been the average speed per hour. And then if you want to work it out for 5 hours, we will just say 5 times that average speed of an hour. So then it becomes 5x over 3, or another way might have been to write it as 5 over 3x. So again, just look at how they phrase it. So not 5x, not 3x over 5, 5x over 3. And you guys can now suddenly see there is also options for the ones that might look also right. So that is also one of the things with BNU, QMI, DSC, all the decision sciences. There is nearly options for you guys if you're also doing it the wrong way. They nearly also have an option for you. Okay, and then let's look at another question before you will see where I have included more questions to some of the expressions and those kind of things that we will also work through. Again, all of these are from previous exam papers, from previous assignments. There is also, under your additional resources, there is also past papers and past. So just a heads up of what happened last semester. They actually used a lot of those in assignments and in the exam. So a lot of your questions are from previous assignments and exam papers. So again, the more you guys can go through those types of papers under additional resources, I will share also some previous exam papers on the WhatsApp group with you guys that you can work through. We will go through a lot of examples in prep for your exams. So I think last semester we nearly went through 100 questions, different questions for the exam prep. So I will do that with you guys as well. So we will definitely get enough prep in. So let's look at this question. A biscuit manufacturer uses 200 grams of flour, 50 grams of sugar, and 100 grams of butter for each packet of biscuits produced. What amount of butter is needed to produce X packet of biscuits? Okay, let's quickly just look at the ratio. So 200 grams of flour, 50 grams of sugar, and 100 grams of butter for each packet of biscuits. Okay, this is a weird question. What amount of butter is needed to produce X packets of biscuits? Okay, so what I want to check is if you guys know how to do from going from grams to kilograms. So 100 grams is equal to 0.1 kilogram. So that's basically what they want to test in this one. So if we now need to say how many butter is needed to produce X packets of biscuits, it will be 0.1 times X kilogram. Okay, so if we needed to produce, and again, I like to add in numbers. So if we needed to produce 5 packets, each packet at 100 grams, I need to have 500 grams for 5 packets. Okay, so if it was 500 grams, it will be then equal to 0.5 kilograms. So half a kilogram, half a kilogram. So what they're basically testing in this question is if you can change grams into kilograms. So it's definitely not 100 x kilogram, because just making that calculation, it would have been 500 kilograms. Definitely not. 0.1 x, yes, that is the correct one. 0.01, so if it was 10 grams, it would have been 0.01. And this one, I don't even know what that is. So if it was 5 packets, let's quickly work it out. So let's say it was 5 packets. 5 divided by 0.01 gives us 500 again. So that and that is exactly the same, actually. And that is also wrong. So again, it seems very difficult, but actually what they just wanted was for you to convert the grams into kilogram to get to the answer. Okay, they can ask this for liters. The other one is they can ask it for kilometers, that you nearly convert meters into kilometers and then milliliters into liters. So that is the three that they normally can ask you to convert. Okay, then what I have added is a few expressions as well, or equations. So it might be that we will do some of this in our next session, but I just wanted to start looking at it so that we can catch up with where you are with your assignments. So let's look at solving equations. And there are, again, a few examples from past papers that we will work through. So when we work out equations with the brackets, what we need to do is each time first multiply into the bracket and then start solving the equation. So the first thing is all of the brackets. First, let's multiply that out. So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 1 is 3. Then we'll keep the plus 4 where it is for now. Then let's work out what is on the right-hand side. So there's a 5. Then minus 3 times x is minus 3x. And minus 6 times minus 2 is plus 6. So just remember, a minus times a minus becomes a positive. So the minus 3 times the minus 2 becomes a positive 6. Then we need to, the easiest, how I normally look at it is to say, okay, let's take all the ones with the X, or if it was a Y, all the ones with a variable. Let's take it all to the left-hand side. So on the left-hand side, we've got this 3x. When we take the minus 3x to the left-hand side, it will also then become 3x. And then on the right-hand side, we'll take everything that is just numbers. So on the right-hand side, at the moment, there's the 5 plus 6. But let's also then bring over what's on the left-hand side. So the plus 3 on the right-hand side becomes minus 3. And the plus 4, if we move it over to the right-hand side, becomes minus 4. Then we can look at it and say, okay, 3x plus 3x is 6x. And then on the right-hand side, on the right-hand side, 5 plus 6, and you can use your calculator here. You don't need to now work this out in your head, because again, sometimes one can make an easy mistake. So 5 plus 6 is 11. 11 minus 3 is 8. 8 minus 4 is 4. Okay, so we sit with 6x is equal to 4. And then to get rid of the 6, we divide on both sides with 6. So 6 divided by 6 leaves me on the left-hand side with x, on the right-hand side with 4 over 6. But we see nowhere here we've got 4 over 6, so we need to simplify it a bit. So how to simplify it is, I say, well, what can go into 4 and into 6? So 2 can go into 4 twice, and 2 can go into 6 3 times. So we are left with 2 over 3. And if we look at the options, option 4 is 2 over 3. Okay, there is also the minus 2 over 3 if somewhere you made a mistake with the numbers. If, again, I just want to show you guys, if that you have changed and not said minus 3 times minus 2 is plus 6, but said minus 6, that would have been then how you got to that number, or even that number in option 1. So again, just make 100% sure when you multiply it out, negative times a negative becomes a positive. Okay, so that is, again, for prep for your assignments, is how to solve the equation, or basically work out. And they can ask the question, solve the equation. They can ask you, work out the value of x. What they can also give you is an equation like this, where there's a fraction and the others don't have a fraction, where they can you can first try to simplify this. So what I would do is I would look at the options, and when I see, okay, all of them are fractions. So I would say let's first work out or simplify. So 30 and 9. So let's say, okay, well, 3 can go into 9 3 times. 3 can go into 30 10 times. And so at least now it's a bit easier. So 10x over 3 plus 2 is equal to 5x. So that still doesn't solve what I need to do. So the next thing I can do is to say, but you are allowed to multiply out by 3 so that we can get rid of it, but we then need to multiply each term with that. So if I say, well, we're going to multiply each term with 3, we get 3 times 10x over 3. So we'll simplify that now, plus 2 times 3 is equal to 5x times 3. Okay, so we'll simplify that now. So 3 goes into 3 once, so I'm left with 10x. Here I'm left with 2 times 3 is 6. And then on the right-hand side, 5x times 3 is 15x. Still not feeling very great with what's left there, but let's see. So then, like the previous one, let's take all the x's to the left-hand side. So 10x minus 15x and all the numbers to the right-hand side. So positive 6, if I take it to the right-hand side, will become negative 6. Still does not look like anything close to that. 10x minus 15x is minus 5x. And that is equal now to minus 6. At least I see there's a 6, there's a 5, but there's a 6 and a 5 as well. And then if I want to isolate x, I need to divide on both sides with minus 5. Minus 6 divided by minus 5. And that is again a minus divided by a minus becomes a positive. So my final answer is 6 divided by 5. And now finally, luckily, I got one of the options. Okay, and then it will always be like that. Nearly another option will be the negative. So if somewhere we've made a mistake and we forgot to put the negative, or we do say negative divide by negative stays a negative, which is not right, but then still there would have been an option. So again, very important nearly to remember the thing, if we say negative times a negative, it becomes a positive, but also when it's a negative, and now this is, let me rather just, a negative divided by a negative, that also becomes a positive. So again, that is important because easily one could have made that mistake by putting it as minus 6 over 5. The other one that we could have made a mistake is that if we didn't say minus 15 when you took it over, but kept it as plus 15, you might have gotten the 25. that we looked at. Okay, so again, they might even work with some of the mistakes one can make. Sorry, I just drank a bit of water. So let's go to another one. So also a bit of a work that we will cover next week. So next week we will go in much more detail around the expressions, but again, I just wanted to start showing you guys, if you need to do assignments, that at least we have done a bit of this. So if you look at the square root, another way of what this means is that it can be written, if there's nothing, it basically means that it is a square root with a 2 in it. Okay, so that is the first thing you guys need to, if there's nothing, it basically means that there is actual factor 2. We just don't write the 2 in there. If it is a cube, they need to then write it as a 3. If it is a 4, they need to write it in as a 4. But we've now come to standardize it, that if there's nothing, it actually means square root, so that it is with a 2. So what that means is, if we look at it from this point of view, what we can do is divide everything inside by 2. Okay, so we can rewrite that then as x 4/2 and y 16/2. Okay, so everything to the power, we can then say, well, we take away that square root, but then we need to take those powers and divide it by 2. The one important thing as well is we need to do it with a constant. So the thing that I would normally do is to say, okay, that 36 is also actually 36, the square root of 36. So let's rewrite that. So if you, again, you don't need to remember it. I use my calculator. So I would go and say, what is 36? The square root of that, and we'll see, okay, it's 6. So you could have rewritten that as 6 to the power of 2 is 36. So square root of 36 can be written as 6 to the power of 2, and then in that the hidden 2. So we could have rewritten that 36 as, if we have taken the square root of it, as to say, well, that's actually 6 to the power of 2 divided by 2. Just to make everything now the same. Okay, so don't forget that we need to square root the 36 as well. And it's not 36 divided by 2, because there is an option for that. It is 36 that you say, well, it's 6 to the power of 2, that gives you 36. And then if we want to get rid of that, it's divide by 2. Okay, so if we then look at this answer, it's 6 to the power of 2 divided by 2 is 6 to the power of 1, which is actually just 6. So without doing the x and the y, again, I would go in the exam and say, okay, well, it's 6, so it's option 2 or option 4. The other two is automatically not the ones that we're looking for. And then x to the power of 4 divided by 2, x to the power of 2. So, okay, x to the power of 2, x to the power of 2, both of them still right. And then y 16 divided by 2 gives us 8. Okay, y8, so that's right. Let's just see. Okay, and the other one was y to the power of 4, so that one then is incorrect. Okay, so again, just wanted to show expression. We will go into much more detail next week. But if you guys, again, if somebody can just maybe at some point in the chat, but I will ask later on tonight as well when your assignment needs to be handed in. But if you need to work out anything with expressions that has to do with powers and square root, this is just a quick way showing it to you guys, but next week we will go into much more detail. Okay, so I just want to check if there's any other ones. So this I also want to, so that one I'll just move out a bit so that we can look at something like this as well. Because this is just numbers. This is from an old paper, so that should have been, and you might see, again, if you look at some of the additional resources, because it's old paper, sometimes it's faded, and so this one should have read 5/6 divided by 3/6 times 3/15. And then they ask us to simplify the question like this. Okay, so the first thing that we need to remember when we look at numbers and fractions is that the first thing that we do is we divide by 3/6. So we can put in brackets if we want to. You don't need to. But what that means is if we look at something like 5/6 divided by 3/6, it's very difficult to work that out. So what we are allowed to do is to say, but I'm allowed to change that to, instead of having divide by 3/6, I'm allowed to change it to say multiply by, and then I swap that around to say 6/3. And the times 3/15 stays the same. So if I have everything the same multiplication, then I'm allowed to simplify it. You guys are allowed to use your calculators. Just remember that with your calculators, do it nearly step by step. So say to it, and I know the Sharp calculator allows you guys to put in fractions. So then, but do it to say 5/6 as a fraction, divide by 3/6, get an answer. and then you multiply it by 3 over 15 if you want to use the fractions. I've got a HB, so that doesn't really work very nicely with fractions because there I need to do a lot of equations and brackets and divisions. It does not allow me to use fractions, but the Sharp and the Casio does. But then just remember that our calculator, if you put everything in, it will take it nearly, it will not see which order it needs to do first. So then rather prompt it with saying 5 over 6 divided by 3 over 6, get the answer, and multiply by 3 over 15. But if we do it on paper, you are allowed to change the division to multiplication, and then we swap it around to 6 over 3, and then I can start simplifying. So I can say, well, cool, 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 3 once. 6 goes into 6 once, 6 go into 6 once. 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 15 3 times. So then at the top, I've got 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. And at the bottom, I've got 1 times 1 times 3, which gives me then 1 over 3, which is option 2. Okay, so that is a way we can simplify it. Another way could have been that we just said, remember there was a 5, so 5 times 6 times 3, what's that, 30, 180. And at the bottom we had 6 times 3 times 15, which is 270. So let's just quickly see, 5 times 6 times 3. 5 times 6 times 3 is actually 90, not 180. So there I already made a mistake. So 5 times 6 is 50, times 3 is 90. So you didn't need to do it, the simplification, the way I did. So if you got 90 over 270, then we just need to simplify at that stage. So then we could have said the zeros cancels out. We've got 9 over 27. So 9 goes into 9 once. 9 goes into 27 3 times. And you got the same answer. Okay, so you don't need to, at this stage, simplify it. You can multiply it out, get the same, but your final answer just need to be in a simplified method. But to that point, they will not have in this options a 90 over 270 as an option as well, because 1 over 3 and 90 over 270 is exactly the same. So they will not have it as the same answer where you need to select one, because both of them are the same. So they will not have something like 90 over 270. They will have that simplified answer. So again, that's just where you will then need to simplify it a bit better. Okay, so most of the answers that you guys will need to provide will always be in the simplified way. So just basically continue to simplify it until you can't anymore. So even if you add 90 over 270 and you said, okay, 50 goes into 90 in 3 times, 30 goes into 279 times, then it is, okay, but let's simplify that a bit more. 3 goes into their ones and 3 goes into their 3 times. So again, there is a few ways to get to that simplified answer. It is just not one method. And again, if you have done it with the Casio or the Sharp, you will also get that if you use the fraction method on the calculator, that will also be then that it will give you the simplified fraction answer. Okay, let me just see what else I wanted to show. It is that one on. Okay, so I just want to show these two again. We will get to it in much more detail next week. I'm just worried that you guys already need to submit assignments and we are a bit behind. So with a question like this, with again simplification, what I find the easiest, again, if you can't use your calculator, so if the Sharp and the Casio doesn't allow it, what we will need to do in this simplified method, I would look at it and say, sure, okay, we've got a 6, we've got a 4, we've got a 24, so I look at the answers, there's a 8, there's a 8, 26, 24. What I would have done is to say, but let's get everything over the same number. The biggest one is 24, so let's put everything on 24. So that last one will just stay the 7 over 24. But let's then change the 5 over 6, that it is something over 24. And let's change the minus 3 over 4, that it is something over 24. So how do I change the 5 over 6 to something over 24? Well, at the bottom, the 6, to get that to 24, I multiplied that by 4. The 6 times 4 gave me the 24. So what I do at the bottom, I do at the top as well. So 5 times 4 will give me 20. So 20 over 24 is the same as 5 over 6. Then I do the same for the 3 over 4 or minus 3 over 4. So how did I get from 4 to 24? I multiplied it by 6. So how did I get from minus 3? I need to multiply that by 6 as well. So minus 3 times 6 is minus 18. Okay, and now it's a bit simpler to work out. So 20 minus 18 is 2. 2 plus 7 is 9. And that is then 9 over 24. Okay, so let's see 9 over 26. Close, not that. Okay, 1 over 8. So it might be that we need to simplify. Okay, 61 over 24, not that one. 3 over 8, so it might have been that we needed to simplify. So let's see, let's divide at the top by 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. Simplify, so 24 divided by 3 is 8. So 3 over 8, so let's go for it again. Okay, not that one. Option 4 it was. Okay, so again, when you do it on the calculator, first do 5 over 6 minus 3 over 4, get the answer, and then say plus 7 over 24. And then hopefully it will simplify it on the calculator as well to 3 over 8. If your calculator can't do it, then we use the process to say, okay, let's put everything over the highest fraction. So that was the 24. And then we will simplify. And with a few iterations, we got to the 3 over 8. Okay, also very important, nearly again, very easily we could have looked at this and say 9 over 25. Oh, I maybe made a mistake and it should have been 9 over 26. And you go for that answer. So just be again careful when you guys work with it to not be tricked in some of the answers that they give you as the option sets. Okay, then the last one nearly that I just wanted to go through that hasn't been covered in the other ones or repeats that we will do next week. But the thing that I want to still cover tonight is something that again will be in your assignments. We will look at it next week as well, but it's something that we call the lowest common multiple. So what that means is we want to get a variable or a number that we can say this thing can divide into it, so can the next one, and so can the next one. So all three of these will be able to divide into into one of these, and we will get something left over. Okay, so lowest common multiple means that all of these must be a multiple of the answer. Okay, so the easiest for me normally to work this out is to take it in steps. So the first one is nearly to look at the numbers. So I would always break the numbers up first. So if we look at 6, how we look at that is what times what gives us a 6. So we know it is 2 times 3. Then I look at the 8 and I will say, okay, how do we break that up? So if I say 2 times 2 times 2, that will give me 8. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. Then let's break up the 12. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 2 times 2 times 3 gives me 12. So now I'm looking at just the numbers, and in my lowest common multiple, all of these numbers need to be represented. So my lowest common multiple need to take into account the 2 times 3. Okay, so that is checked. So if I look at 2 times 3, what is missing from it if I look at the 8? So, well, there is a 2, but I'm still missing those two numbers. So in this lowest common multiple, there's actually that 2 times 2 that is not covered in that. And then if I look at the 12, I'm like, okay, there the 2 is covered. Awesome. The 3 is covered. Great. And in this, another 2 is covered. So all of that is actually already covered in the 2 times 3 and the 2 times 2. Okay, so first then let's just solve the lowest common multiple for the number. So 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 2 is 4. 6 times 4 is 24. So without looking even at the A, B, and C, we can already see, there's my 24. All the others are actually wrong. Okay, so again, for assignment, it's not that you need to stress about time because the assignments, I think you've got quite some time to complete it, but in the exam, obviously it will be a bit less. So if you do it this way, easily saving time, we know, okay, well, it needs to be 24, so the others we can actually not worry about. But let's, on the same principle, look at the A, B's, and C's. So if we look at this first one, there we have A to the power of 2, so that means A times A. In the second one, we only have one A, and in the third one, also only one A. So if I'm looking at the lowest common multiple, again, needs to cover all of them. So A times A, I have. So that's the A to the power of 2. And that will cover that A with that, and it will cover that A. So my A's are covered, that the most of them is A to the power of 2. And so far, it is in line with that option 1. Then we look at the B's. In that first one, there's 1B. In that second one, there's 1B. And in that third one, there's actually 3 B's. So again, 3 B's, so I need to cover at least that 1B. Covered there, but here I need 3 B's. So if it is B to the power of 3, I will cover all of them. Again, still happy that my answer is correct. And then C's, there's one C, so, and there's no there, so that one C is also covered in the second one. So we only need one C. Okay, so that is a way to work out your lowest common multiple and nearly taking it a bit step by step, so that it is easier for you guys to get to the answers. There's a lot of times that when we look at the lowest common multiple, that they actually only have numbers and you need to pick the lowest common multiple out of a few numbers. But sometimes they do throw in the number with a variable. And in that instance, again, I will just start with a number first, because in this instance, when we look for lowest common multiple and we only looked at the number, we could have then we saw that it is 24, and we could have then eliminated all three of those options already, which again, when you guys are timed in the exam, it will help you, because then you know I actually don't need to go further. It's something different if it was 12, and when you sit with two options for 12, then it is then a process of, okay, if it was 12, let's go then to the A's and see if with the A's I can find out or cancel any options, and then it would have happened as well, that it would have been possible. Okay, so you guys will see that's what I will do in most of our sessions, is show you how to simplify, or rather eliminate some of our options, just so that when it comes to the exam time, um, you are and will be pressured to quickly go through questions. I think the exam is 20 questions in the 2 hours, or 25 questions in the 2 hours, where at the moment it is assignment. I think it's a bit longer for you guys to complete it. So we will again go through lots of exam questions as we get closer to the exam. We will do a lot of prep, so that you can see the different questions and options that we will go through. Okay, so that is it for tonight. Our next session, we look at operation, power, routes, and orders. So a few of the things that I touch on at the end of tonight's session, we will go into much more detail the next time. It might be that I know there's lots of clashes on Tuesdays and Wednesdays with other subjects. So I am going to check if we can't move the sessions around, so that more people can join. But again, everything is recorded. Everything will be put onto the Western Cape platform for you guys to access, presentations and recordings, and I will add it to our WhatsApp group as well. Okay, so please watch out on the WhatsApp group just for some comms on if we will move the sessions, because I know a lot of people can't join on a Wednesday or Tuesday, so I'll rather move it a bit out to other days. So from next week it might change, so that we just get more students to be able to join. I will also look um, at the links, why it is not working for everyone, but we can just get better attendance to this as well. Okay, so that is it for tonight, guys. I will share the presentation. I will share the recordings. In the presentation, what I've also there is a few extra questions that you guys can go through, and we will definitely also look at those questions next time. Okay. Thanks for joining. I know there was lots of connection issues, so thanks for sticking it out. And then I will share everything on the group as well. Have a great evening, stay warm, and we will see you again